Opportunities to serve God full time. Pioneering. 70 hours a month. That is a piece of cake. We watch more television than 70 hours a month. And we are young and we are full of energy, and surely we can do that. Many pioneers have experienced the joy of helping their Bible students become baptized witnesses. What secular job could possibly be as exciting and satisfying? Saving people's lives or pursuing the American dream? And what's so funny about the American dream is there's no security in it. I mean, I went to college. I have friends that went to college. You know what? They're doing manual labor. People have worked in their jobs for 40, 50 years and get fired before retirement. You're never going to get fired from full-time service.
You're listening to The Critical Thought, where we challenge our listeners to use critical thinking when examining the teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Welcome to another episode of Amanda's Story, where she'll be talking to JT. Please join them as their conversation is already in progress.
The issue of college is very, very unfortunate. I mean, it is absolutely unfortunate. Jehovah's Witnesses, as an organization, they basically lie about their views on education. They try to present a public view that college is a personal choice if one wants to go. They try to downplay the fact that as a religious denomination, as a group of religious people, they try to play down the fact that they discourage every single young, talented child in every congregation from going to college, especially higher education. They'll give you a break if you go to vocational school. They'll let you do that. They don't want you in an institution of higher learning. And the basic reason is always the same. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's what they typically will march out. If you go back into the publications a few years when they really jumped on this higher education thing, the reason that they were discouraging higher education, they still do it today, is that the world is going to end very, very soon. So there's no need to polish the brass on a sinking ship. And so since the world is going to end so soon, then logically that means that it would be a waste of time. The problem is when the Watchtower started telling young people this, one of the strongest examples was back in the late 60s. They were telling young people who were Jehovah's Witnesses, who were 17, 18, 19 years of age, that you will never grow up in this system. You will never grow old. You will never have time for a career because the time is just so short. It's around the corner. It's near the corner. It's in the corner. It's by the corner. Next to the corner. And it's kind of sad when you consider that a 17, 18, 19-year-old Jehovah's Witness who first read that in the Awake magazine, that you need to face the fact. And it's interesting how the society uses such words like facts. The society don't know what facts are. They just make up what they want to make up. It's interesting that the young Jehovah's Witnesses back at that time today would be retiring. They would be retired earning a pension.
I know a family actually who was in there, a brother who was he was close to our family. He was in his 70s and still had to work because he had no 401k. They sold everything when they were in 1975, got rid of all their belongings, moved the family into an apartment, and were basically ready. So he's uneducated now, no pension, no 401k, no nothing. He has to work to support them, and they have to rely on their grown children, who, by the way, are not Jehovah's Witnesses. They walked away in order to survive in their 70s.
That story is repeated so many times. When I go back to North Carolina, where I grew up at, I see all the older Jehovah's Witnesses I knew as kids. And for the most part, they're in the same identical situation because they bought into the society's lie. And I will say this, that it's especially sad for African Americans. Historically, African Americans weren't allowed to go to school, or for many, many years they couldn't go to school. And so when the opportunity to go to college opened up, like during the 60s, my mom was part of the civil rights movement, and she was the first one in her home to go to college. They were very proud because here's a chance for one of our children not to have to work on the farm, pick cotton, but they can do something with their mind. And so here you had a religious denomination that basically was telling, young people not to go to college. The insult was even greater for African Americans because basically a religion was telling black folks not to go to college. And that's really what it boiled down to. And what Jehovah's Witnesses will typically do, because I used to do it myself, and I think most Jehovah's Witnesses can relate to this experience. When someone mentions Jehovah's Witnesses in college, they will often say, "Well, we have brothers in our congregation who've gone to college." But when you start examining it a little bit closer, what you would typically find is that these individuals who have gone to college, and many times they hold, high-level degrees, you will find the commonality. You'll find a very simple commonality. These folks went to college before they became Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yep.
Like your father went to college before he became a witness. And it's kind of interesting because I've seen situations where you have brothers who've gone to college, and they come out of college, they got good jobs and everything, and then they become a Jehovah's Witness. And they'll be standing on the stage, and they're pulling down, 6 figures a year because of their college training. And they'll be giving talks about, don't go to college, basically. Don't want to waste your time in college. I feel my college was a waste of time, friends. I wouldn't waste my time going. And I'm thinking to myself, man, you're making over $100,000 a year living in North Carolina. Man, shut up.
We have in my congregation, it was kind of a melting pot, but it was a melting pot of what we always said, money. It's in a well-to-do area. There was well-to-do families. And there was this family here who is, bleed money. The wife was raised as a witness, her family is well known in money, and he married into it. But college educated, Ivy League college educated. They owned their own business. They would, every time the new car came out, BMWs, that was their obsession. Every time the new BMW came out, they had it, the first new one. And you'd pull up at the hall, and then you're gonna tell me that I shouldn't go to school. Then they wanna tell me that I need to go take tours at Bethel because that would be perfect for me because I like computers and I went to school for computers, so that would be a good fit for me. And why don't you regular pioneer? So it's okay for you not to regular pioneer, but I'm supposed to. I'm not good enough for college. I'm not good enough to have my own business and be independent and support myself. It was such it's almost like the day that I was disfellowshipped. I always tell this. The day I was disfellowshipped, I walked out of the Kingdom Hall, and my mom was with me. My mom started bawling. She was just in heartbroken tears. I can't believe they did this to you. We should talk to them. And she's like, and I'm just calm as hell. And she's looking at me and she's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, nothing. I'm like, I am free. I'm free. Like I can, if I want to go to school, I can go to school. If I want to be the president, I can go and practice to do that. Whatever I want to do now, these people cannot tell me what to do anymore. Nobody can. You can't tell me I can't go to college. You can't tell me I can't use my God-given brain that he gave me, not you. It's hypocritical.
It's very sad. I had the opportunity to go to college. Many times Jehovah's Witness kids, because we're so accustomed to studying and researching the Watchtower publications, we're used to the concept of how to study material, look at the bottom or look in the back of the book, get the question, and find the information in the paragraph that we're studying. And so for most Jehovah's Witness kids, they just roll that over to what they do in school many times. And as a result, many times Jehovah's Witness kids, they excel in school. And, of course, once you start excelling in school, you grab the attention of teachers, administrators, guidance counselors, and they realize, you got a talent, man. You're good at math and science. And that was what it was for myself. I had the opportunity to go to one of the top colleges in the state of North Carolina. They were looking for. They was offering a minority engineering program, and my geometry teacher, she was a white lady. Her girlfriend in college was the admissions officer at the college. Now she was growing there. She was working at the actual college. And she told me, she was like, JT, I can get you in. JT, I can get you in. I got a friend. She'll flag your application. And she helped other students I know get in. And like I said, during this time, they was trying to get more, minorities involved in computers and science and so forth. And so here was a door. And in terms of scholarships and so forth, I was in line for all of that. And because of our teaching and our training, we turn these things down. When you consider a 7-8-year-old Jehovah's Witness child that goes to the assemblies every year from the time they're 7 to the time they're 18, and they watch the organization parade young people on the stage, and they announce, I just turned down a scholarship to Harvard. You got 30,000 people now clapping, okay? You got 1,000 people clapping, and you're 7 years old, and you're like, wow. And then by the time you get 18, you've seen all your life as a young Jehovah's Witness that those who turned down college were considered as choosing the better portion. And I tell people all the time, and it's so important, I cannot stress this to people, especially non-Jehovah's Witnesses. The most important thing you need to understand about Jehovah's Witnesses is not only their teachings, but their culture. See, if someone asks a Jehovah's Witness, does your religion say that you can't go to college? The answer is no. In fact, there is absolutely no publication, no magazine you will ever be able to find that says, thou shalt not go to college. What the society did was something very ingenious. They created a culture where you don't want to go. You mentioned a few minutes ago something your father told you. Your father told you that if you want to go to college, you're free to go. But don't you expect a thing from me, because I'm not going to support you. I'm not going to back you. You're going to be on your own. Now, that is what basically every Jehovah's Witness parent for the last 20, 30, 40 years would often march up to their kids. Now, let's take the reason why. Well, this has been exactly what the Watchtower has taught Jehovah's Witnesses. There's an example that they gave in the Kingdom Ministry. Now, as you know, the Kingdom Ministry is not an external publication. It's for non-Jehovah's Witnesses, basically. It's not for people on the street. It's an in-house. It's an in-house newsletter. But the Kingdom Ministry gave an example of an elder in Korea. Now, notice they make sure they highlight his position. The reason they highlight his position is because as an elder, this example that you're about to read is worthy of imitation. It gave the example of this elder had 3 kids, had a daughter and 2 boys. The daughter was a talented and gifted child, had the opportunity to go to college, wanted to go to college. The father was very upfront. You can go to college if you want to, but you better not expect any help from me whatsoever. So what did she do? She became a regular pioneer. Then the article says the second child reached a certain age, and the child was, once again, I want to go to college, Daddy. And the father said, well, you can go to college if you want to, but do not expect no help from me. Then it was the third child. Now, this was the most interesting experience. The third child basically looked up and like, don't worry about it. I'm not going to ask about college. I ain't worry about it. Because the child knew they would get no support. Now, why do I tell this experience? Well, my wife and I, we often speak in African-American churches. Now, anybody who's familiar with African-American churches, going to college or having young people in the church who are going off to college, they are very, very proud of them.
They celebrate it as a group. They celebrate that person for getting into school.
Oh, my goodness. It is celebrated. And so when you stand before a group of individuals and tell them, I belong to a religion that discourage folks from going to college, and you're talking to black folks, they're like, you must be crazy. There can't be no religion telling young black folks not to go to college. Bad, we need black folks in college. And then when you explain to them how it works in the Jehovah's Witness religion, it is absolutely amazing. The looks on their faces when we tell people that this religion systematically discourages college. It does it through its publications. It does it through its talks. And as we have seen with our own eyes, and I'm going to tell you, it was absolutely the greatest video I have ever seen that helps persons like myself and yourself and others who are former Jehovah's Witnesses to make our point that Jehovah's Witnesses discourage the most brightest and talented young people from going to college. This summer's convention had an example that every Jehovah's Witness child knows. That little boy was gifted and talented, and his father crushed him. He crushed that little boy's dream. And the reason why is because Jehovah's Witnesses, what they do, they live in a black and white world. You either serve God or you go to college. So when you tell people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses that this is the choice that Jehovah's Witness children are presented with, they realize these folks are absolutely crazy. Recently, the society has made changes in what elders can do in terms of being able to remain elders. The society's position is very clear. If an elder is walking around a kingdom hall, and I love telling this in churches. Oh, I love telling these people that so they can see this is the real Jehovah's Witness that you don't see who's knocking on your door on Saturday morning. A man in the church, in the kingdom hall, in the congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, if he sees 3 or 4 talented and gifted young people in his church, if he is encouraging them to go to college and use their God-given talents, this man will be stripped of any responsibilities in this church. And when you tell people, they like, man, I had people say, JT, you lying. You got to be lying. Because
that's
they have never.
Are you serious?
Yes. The society's position is any elder who becomes known in the Kingdom Hall as, Brother Johnson, we understand that you walk around telling young people to go to college. That's not what we want you to be doing. He will lose his position. It's really amazing.
Oh, wow.
See, a lot of people don't realize these are letters that the elders have gotten. And so what happened is very interesting. A few years back, the society came out on the issue, for many, many years, it was real heavy on don't go to college, don't go to college, don't go to college, right? Then, like, around in the 90s, and I don't know if
when I graduated. It was when I graduated, they changed it to now, like, a vocational or a 2-year school is good, it's okay. Ugh.
One of the things that they said, and this was for Jehovah's Witness kids, get out of jail free card. The Watchtower said that if you're going to go to college, you want to go so that you can pioneer. And so kids jumped on this. Why are you going to college, Joe? I plan on pioneering once I finish getting this doctor's degree. I'm going to pioneer. And so I actually spoke to 2 circuit overseers. Circuit overseers across the country in their reports to the society, because he writes up a report every week. And so they let the society know what the trends are, what's happening out in the field. One of the things that they were noticing was that a lot of parents and a lot of Jehovah's Witness kids, they were claiming, I'm going to college so I can pioneer, after I finish college. They had no intentions of pioneering. And so they were using this as a jail-free card. And after a while, the society came back and shut this thing down. And that's when the harder talk started coming out, the harder demonstrations, they just shifted. And so for a number of years back in the 90s, man, a lot of Jehovah's was like, well, I'm going to college so I can pioneer once I finish.
That was my plan. That was exactly my plan, because that was around between 92 and 96. I graduated in 96. That was
I think the article was like 92 or something like that. But so Jehovah's Witnesses, they're just looking for some room to breathe. And the minute the Watchtower gives them room to breathe, boy, they start breathing.
Run. You get your oxygen mask and you just suck it in.
Get the mask. Run.
That assembly program from last summer, truly, wholeheartedly, no doubt in my mind, lays out the society and the organization as a crazy cult. They signed their own declaration of mental illness in this past summer. Anything that any of us have ever said our entire lives, all the defending we've had to do, all the explanations we've had to give about why they don't talk to us, why they think we're crazy, why they don't deal with us, why we're the bad guys because we're not witnesses anymore, why we don't go to school, we don't play sports, we don't do this, we don't do that. Those videos sealed it for us. It's almost like we can just sit back and wait, because if anyone, from my generation, Generation X and onward, millennials and whatever comes after that, if they don't see those with critical thinking, not just thinking anymore, critical thinking, because my generation doesn't take just what you give us anymore. We're the kind that are like, well, why? What? That doesn't make sense. What for? Why should I do that? If they don't, the society sealed. It might take a long time, but they sealed their own fate this past summer, in my book.
I agree with you 100%. I'll put it to you this way, like as you said, if you ever wanted to demonstrate to a non-Jehovah's Witness how Jehovah's Witnesses are behind the curtain, those videos are devastating. The one with the girl who left home and she was trying to call home to talk to her mom and daddy, and they wouldn't pick up the phone. And if you show that to a mental health professional, they will let you know right up front, if that little girl was about to commit suicide, that would have been absolutely devastating.
I actually showed my entire family that video because my parents, their denial of me in public and to our family, our extended family who are not Jehovah's Witnesses, is the reason they don't speak to me is my fault. Everything is me. Well, ask her. They never answer. It's always go ask her. She knows why. Or when she gets her life together, it's always an excuse. They never say exactly why. So when this video came out, I damn near cried, like, thank you, Jehovah, because you gave me what I needed to show everybody exactly why my parents act the way they do.
When I saw them, I was like, I don't believe those guys produced these videos for public consumption. I can't believe it.
I thought it was just me, too. I thought it was just me. Like, did they really do this? I'm like, who in the world approved of this? This is like a guy in IT. He has a whole list of all the passwords. He prints it out and sends it. And he emails everybody in the company everybody's password. I mean, I could not believe. I'm like, who approved of these videos? I cannot believe. Like, can you imagine the news? You know, at all assemblies they have like the news service. You know, you have like the religious editor of the local, the paper. They always send somebody out to do a story. They try to fill the religious. So Jehovah's Witnesses are in town, and we're gonna send a little, reporter out there to pick up, what's going on. Can you imagine the kind of stuff that reporter's like? I don't believe these folks is crazy. It was literally abuse. It was like an abuser video recording him beating you. It's like you basically told on yourself. They told on themselves. Finally. I mean, they had a video that looked like something out of Waco, Texas, with the Davidians. The bunker. Yeah.
Everybody like, so are these FBI agents? I mean, it was the nuttiest thing I've ever seen in my life. For them to do that, I can see, talking to the friends, in private, at their house or maybe the Kingdom Hall. But to bring that kind of foolishness out into a public setting, it's like they are losing. These guys are losing.
Yes. That is the art of desperation.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly what it is. But this whole issue of college has really just messed up a lot of young people who had opportunities to get scholarships based on, sports and so forth. And see, this is why we do these stories. You see, what happens is, as we continue to do, and I tell my wife, I says, you need to understand, and this is just my personal view, and ladies and I, we have this discussion all the time. See, I personally believe that the focus should be on the organization and the culture and the teachings. Sometimes people will get up and they'll tell experience by, the brothers didn't treat me right. Well, see, that's an easy one to deflect. Well, you were just in a bad congregation, man. I was in a good congregation. My elders were, they were loving to us. They'd come and visit us on a regular shepherding call. So I don't know about you, man. You were just in a bad hall. And so they deflect away real easy when you start talking about personalities. But when you start discussing the culture, the teachings, for example, what is the culture among Jehovah's Witnesses in regards to higher education? Well, let's do a quick contrast. The Mormons. The Mormons are very strong advocates for higher education. That's why Brigham Young University is there, okay? So you are able to see the overall Jehovah's Witness culture. Then you start looking at statistics. What do independent statistics show about Jehovah's Witnesses? It shows that Jehovah's Witnesses rank at the lowest level of education. Now, I make that statement because the next question is why? Is it because Jehovah's Witnesses simply are pulling people from the lowest educational ranks? Absolutely not. The reason that Jehovah's Witnesses rank the lowest is because they have a culture where when their children become adults, they are not encouraged to go to college. So when you consider after 2 or 3 generations of Jehovah's Witnesses who have not gone to college, not because they were not intelligent enough, but because they were so discouraged from going, because if you go to college, you don't love God. Like you said, people go to college because you're proud, you're arrogant, you don't want to work with your hands. They give you all these reasons why people don't go to college. And so this is the type of stuff that you run into when you're talking to people who have very little background knowledge of Jehovah's Witnesses. You know, when I was at Bethel, we had this, that you often have people from other Bethelites from other branches will come to the United States for training. There was a Bethelite that came here. He was from the Nigerian branch, and they're often here from 6 months to a year. And so as a result, they end up going to one of the local congregations in New York City. Well, this Bethelite, he hooked up with us, and he started going to some of our meetings up in Harlem. And so we got a chance to talk about, what is lacking in Africa and everything. And so when you see certain articles, you begin to realize, I wonder why this article was written. And you're reading it, it doesn't really make much sense. You're like, okay, I guess so. Let me give you a perfect example. In Africa and a lot of third world countries, when Jehovah's Witness kids reach 18, they'll leave and they'll go to Germany, France, England, to go there for either going to college or for job opportunity. Well, the Watchtower put together an article about why are you leaving to go overseas, basically. Now, the average Jehovah's Witness in the United States don't know nobody who left their home to go overseas. And you go to any Kingdom Hall in any city, you know anybody who left the United States and went somewhere? No, not to live. In Africa and in these third world countries, this was a problem that the society was having. These young people were packing up and heading out. And so you'll see these articles that are set in a manner in which to discourage. They don't come out and tell you. They use them to discourage you. And over a period of time, that becomes part of the culture. A young person, like you said, for single sisters who want to move out of their home, there's never any thought about she wants to be an independent woman and take care of herself and have her own little place, cook her own little. That's never even a consideration. Girl, I bet you just want to get a man over to that house. That's all you want. Get a man over to the house.
Basically.
And so
there was always that idea that it was, so in my mind, as a female, I'm trying to do for me. I don't want to depend on a man, which is what my mom did. My mom didn't work. She was a stay-at-home mom. So she solely depended on my father. And to this day, it is still that same way. I resented that. I never wanted to be like that. I want to take care of myself. I want my own money. I want to be able to do and take trips and do whatever I want. And so here I am getting my education, trying to better myself, but yet I have to bow down to a brother who barely can speak English or read and write, but he's an elder and he gives talks. So apparently he's more qualified than me. And he's trying, how are you going to counsel me, someone who has been abused, and you have not gone to school, you have no formal training to deal with anything like that, and you decide that I'm unworthy of God's love?
All I know is, sister, you need to put that little piece of toilet paper on top of your head when you praying, and there's supposed to be some brothers around.
Amen. Amen.
My mama, when they couldn't find napkins, when they go in the bathroom and get a little piece of toilet paper.
Oh my God.
You were to have some non-Jehovah's Witness walk in the Kingdom Hall, they'd be like, these folks up here is nutty,
I can't. I just can't. It makes no sense. It's almost embarrassing. When you try to explain it to people, it's embarrassing.
I'm going to tell you, check this out. We had this sister in our hall, just a wonderful sister. She was a clinical psychologist. In fact, she used to do pro bono work for the society. And I remember she had invited one of her fellow doctors, and during this time, this is when they was having the book studies in the home, right? And what happened was I was the book study conductor, but I had to do something even so I couldn't go. So I called my assistant. I said, look, man, I'm not going to be able to make the book study tonight. I need for you to conduct the book study. And he said, okay. And so now check this out. So she invites one of her fellow doctors. And it was one of those lessons where it was just a lot of hard words in the lesson to read, right? So there was only one other. I should have called, but I didn't call because I knew there was another brother there who could read. Turned out he didn't show up either. So that left us with this brother. I mean, he was a wonderful man, but he couldn't read. He could barely read. And so because he was baptized and he was a brother,
the ministerial servant, he was like, well, I got to pick him to read because he's the only other brother here. And so he picked this guy to read during the book study, to read the paragraph. And so the sister was there with her fellow doctor, and he just stumbling and falling. And when she left, her fellow doctor said, why didn't you just have someone who could read? I mean, I understand he was trying his best, and then she had to explain to her colleague the toilet paper headship thing,
It's pathetic. It is absolutely pathetic.
She saw me a couple of weeks later. She said, JT, I need to talk to you. She said, you set up something. You set up. I said, I got time. I couldn't make it to the meeting. And then she related the experience of how she said, I was just so embarrassed. She said, I wish that the ministerial servant had selected one of the sisters to read the paragraph, but he didn't know what to do, and so he just grabbed the first male who's baptized to read, which happened to be the brother who couldn't read. And so her colleague there was like, is this going to be continue like this? Every week y'all read like this? But that's the way the organization works. And it's very unfortunate. But this whole issue, and I'm really sorry that you had to experience, but I tell people, by all of us telling our story, what it does is it creates a body of work. See, the internet today is where people go for information. And when people keep hearing the same basic drumbeat over and over, Jehovah's Witnesses run into a problem when they try to say, well, they're just lies. They're just lies. They're just lies. Because after a while, critical thinking people realize, if I go on Yelp and I keep reading about this restaurant that ain't worth 50 cents, they're going to come to the conclusion this restaurant just don't serve good food. I mean, they might be trying the best they can, but the food is not good. And so that's what people do today. People go to the internet to get reviews. And the Jehovah's Witnesses don't understand that now you are up for reviews. And the purpose of our channel, and that's why we focus on, we want people to think critically. My mother and my father-in-law always have said since they have left this organization, baby, if we only knew what questions they have asked. And that's the whole point. Because people know so little about Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't know what questions to ask when they encounter Jehovah's Witnesses or when they're having Jehovah's Witnesses at their home. Well, all we're doing is providing people with critical thinking questions that they can ask Jehovah's Witnesses. And as we often see in these online forums, when these questions and issues are raised about things that the Watchtower writers have said, we often see how Jehovah's Witnesses respond in the most vicious way. They jump on us as individuals to dog us individually. Well, see, that don't mean jack to me. You know why? Because as a critical thinker, you fully understand you can't change the subject and it's going to make what we discussing right. I'm sorry. You can jump on JT all day long. They wrote the stuff, not me. I'm merely pointing it out. You better take it up with the writers in the Watchtower. Don't try that 50-cent line on me. See, Jehovah's Witnesses have been trained to respond two ways. This brother must have been cut short in the congregation. He must have not been used. That's why he's asking these questions. Or two, he got an ego problem. He not humble. He proud. Well, see, that stuff works at the Kingdom Hall. Those are Watchtower talking.
What's wrong with being proud? What is wrong with being proud and knowing what you're talking about? You should know what the hell you're talking about if you're teaching people.
You would think so.
What is wrong with that?
But see, that's the whole point. That's my whole point. Those type of talking points only work at the Kingdom Hall. When you put them into the real world, people look at you like, well, okay, let's say the man does have an ego problem. How does that change what you taught on this subject? So exactly. Those types of diversions don't work with critical thinkers because they fully understand you just changing the subject, man. Let's go back and talk about what this guy was talking about that you guys publish in your pamphlets, not who he is or what he is, because anyone could have told me what he just said, and that's the whole point. It's not JT. Anybody could raise the same questions that I'm raising. So you're going to have to come a little bit stronger than this stuff like, let's look at JT attitude. No. That's not going to work. And I love this story because people often say, well, it's because, and like I said, these are Watchtower talking points. It's because he wasn't used. Well, that doesn't fit with me because I was used very well in the organization. I never felt I got cut short. I was involved in circuit district programs, what now they call regional, but I was involved in all that. So don't try to run that line on me about I didn't get used and now I'm mad. And and I love when they say, well, you just want position. Let me tell you something. If I wanted position, I would have stayed one of Jehovah's Witnesses. You see, I know guys right now who are elders who know that half the stuff to society, they'll admit it, half the stuff to society they don't even believe, but they don't want to give up their title. They don't want to give up their privilege. So when someone comes to me and say, now you just won't put, man, please go somewhere and sit down up on the porch. You're talking that crazy stuff. I would have stayed one of Jehovah's Witnesses and kept my title if that was what I wanted, but I had to deal with some reality. And that is, I couldn't stand in front of 1,000 folks and tell them something that I know I'm blowing smoke in their eyes. And so so what happens is I don't fit the stereotype of Jehovah's Witness that they have been told all of their lives. And that's why I laugh. A lot of people are like, Chief, I'm sorry. I'm not that guy you think you talking about. So you're going to have to step off somewhere on this issue. So let's go back and focus on what the Watchtower writers say. And so as you keep turning them back to what the Watchtower says, what the society says, what the writers have written and claim they got from God, witnesses hate that. They hate that. And the same thing with this college. They wrote this stuff and gave it out to young people about going to college. We're just simply examining it to show how ridiculous and foolish it is, and how people's lives have been impacted greatly as they grow older and they're now reaching retirement age. These folks' lives have been jacked up because y'all gave them this crazy advice. Just like they kicked all those 1,000 Bethelites out the first of last year. 1,000 Bethelites. And they told these. I personally know guys who've been in Bethel 30 years. 30 years. Yes. And they told them.
We have families here that came back when they came back after like 30, 40 years. No education, have nothing to do. They can't do anything.
Can you imagine the district overseers when they got that letter? Could you drop those keys in the car and you better get up out of that apartment, go and get you a job now? That's what they told district overseers. You give up the car keys, you give up the car, and you give up the apartment. Now go get a job. I know you're 73, but don't worry about it.
I would have dropped the N-word loud and at all capitals in someone's face. Like, what? They would have gotten every cuss word, including the N-word, from my mouth had you told me that. After all those years, I dedicated my life.
I tell people all the time, you have to really, and this is the kind of stuff that Jehovah's Witnesses, it's because we were never critical thinkers. So that's why we never stopped and thought about nothing. And that's really the whole catch-22. The minute a Jehovah's Witness stops and starts asking critical thinking questions like, this don't make no sense at all. Here you got a man and his wife. They've been serving faithfully organization. In fact, when you consider the circuit overseers and the district overseers and the Bethelites, these guys represent the most loyal people in the organization because they've given up jobs in the context of the organization. They are the most loyal people. These guys are loyal. They gave up everything. And then to have the organization give them the shaft, that's messed up. Even the Catholic Church got old folks home for nuns and priests. Society ain't got jack for these guys. You are on your own, Frank. I know you've been out here in the district work for 32 years, but you're on your own starting tomorrow. Now, where's a 72-year-old black man with no education, no skills going to go? Please tell me where he's going. I cannot imagine, the type of depression and just anxiety these people. I mean, the organization, I tell people we work for a book publishing company. We might as well have been working for Walmart, Fuller Brush, Shackley, Amway. We might as well have been working for one of these.
At least you get benefits with those. You get benefits.
At least you did get some benefits. I mean, the Watchtower have sold its people a bill of goods. And it's very, very sad because, when you look at the type of people who become, and this is what personally saddens me the most. Your average Jehovah's, I think about the little old black sister back home in my congregation, or the sister got 3-4 kids, and she's just trying to come to the Kingdom Hall, and she want to raise her kids the best she can. Not realizing that what she is implanting in their head is going to hold them back from being able to be the kind of people that they can be. And it's just very, very sad.
My mom said the same thing. When I got baptized at 14. And that was because my parents more or less pushed me to do it. Like, my dad literally sat my sister and I down, and he said, I will not have grown children in my house that are not baptized.
Yeah,
He's like, so you'll need to make a decision at some point. So at 14, I got baptized. And when I got to fellowships all these years later, my mom, that was the first thing out of her mouth was, well, you didn't live up to your dedication. We taught you this and that, and you didn't live up to your dedication. You got baptized. And my response to her was, okay, but you're holding a child, a decision I made as a child. I couldn't drive, I couldn't drink, I couldn't smoke, I couldn't work, I couldn't get married, but I was smart enough and mature enough to signed my life over to a religion, to a cult, and I'm held to that now as an adult. And
it is
people
absolutely
that come
amazing.
in don't understand the gravity of that one decision, one little tiny decision as a child I am held to for the rest of my life. And I'm still paying for as an adult.
I have a cousin. She was this fellowship when she was like 14 or 15. She got pregnant. Her father was given the option of being able to maintain himself as a ministerial servant or put his child out on the street. And it's very, very sad. That's what he did. She's 56 years old today, and her parents still will not speak to her. And it's kind of ironic because she had a son, and her son is now a lawyer. And so I tell my cousin, I say, you've done well for yourself. Go on. Don't worry about your parents. They are still in the Watchtower high control organization, and they cannot think for themselves. So, you got to move on.
It is truly, and I now counsel women who have been victims of domestic violence. And every time I talk to them, it is like I go into this mode because I have flashbacks of not the abuse, but being a witness. It truly is, at its core, an abusive agreement or relationship. Their minds can't be changed. They're very controlling. They're manipulative. They're they emotional blackmail you. You can't think for yourself. You have to. There is no critical thinking, as you said.
No.
There's literally consequences for decisions that don't matter. Like your cousin. I mean, she was a child.
And they are just as diehard today as they. And so, for me personally, there are two types of people that we're interested in helping. People who are not Jehovah's Witnesses and they're interested in Jehovah's Witnesses. We believe that a person should know the good, the bad, and the ugly. There is nothing worse than a consumer of products, services, and ideas who is only given half the story. If after examining all these things that we encourage you to examine, you decide to become one of Jehovah's Witnesses, at least you will know that you made the decision with full knowledge. Now, down the road, when you realize you shouldn't have done it, those folks are going to be jumping off bridges.
Sadly, but it is true.
People need to have the full story. Or the second group are Jehovah's Witnesses who have questions, and because the organization has the culture that you do not ask certain types of questions. And if you do ask certain types of questions, you'll raise the eyebrow of people like, so where are you going with that question? You question the society? And as a result, Jehovah's Witnesses, it always it shuts them down. One of the questions my wife and I, we always ask people, was there ever a point in your mind where you had doubts? And every single person we've talked to says yes. And then we ask, well, what happened? And the story is exactly the same. They had a talk, they went to an assembly, they had a conversation with someone, and they merely pushed it into the back of their mind.
I don't think I ever did that, though, and I was trying to think about that because she asked me that. I don't think I ever actually, pushed it away because my generation, Generation X and millennials, we're not baby boomers. We're not just kind of rolling off of what was handed to us and then we just roll with it. I have my phone in my hand 24/7. So if there's something I don't get or understand, I'm immediately Googling it. There's just no question about it. And you could still be talking to me and I'll Google it in front of you. There is no way that my generation can continue or that will be the next ones to carry this organization through. It's not. I just don't see it happening because
it's going to become very raggedy. Because I remember a fellow elder told me he says the young people in this congregation, they're up on the internet and they're starting to question the society. And so
all the time.
And so and of course the catch-22 is now that a lot of witnesses have iPads and stuff at the meeting. Somebody came home surfing the website ain't supposed to be on.
I would be that person too. If I was still going, I would be the first in the first row too, so everybody could see it.
Somebody sitting over in the corner, boy, they're not paying no attention to the meeting. They're out there watching YouTube videos.
I truly believe it.
It's going to be interesting as they move forward. If you want to see something that's very interesting, is if you get a chance, swing by the Jehovah's Witnesses website and take a look at their videos and take a look at the count. It's interesting. You have a religion that has 8 million people. And then you look at how many people actually click on the videos. It's like, I don't want to hear that stuff again. I heard it at the Kingdom Hall.
And some of the songs, like there was a video I saw. I guess they're writing their own songs now in these videos, and it's laughable.
Funny, it is hilarious.
Where'd you get this mess from? Who the hell wrote this song? This is tacky.
If you check out the music videos, take a look at the count. You're like, you got to be kidding. And as you can see, the video represents a tremendous amount of video shooting, a lot of graphics. I mean, somebody spent a lot of time to put that thing together, and it's like, nobody watching that thing, man.
For all the times that they put down the TV evangelizers as I was growing up and how they were wasting their time and all that nonsense, and yet that's exactly what they're doing now.
That is priceless. Do you realize that if you were to take the JW broadcast, stick it between TDJ,
700 Club, and TDJ,
the Watchtower JW broadcast, if somebody was at home like on a Sunday morning and they just surfing through the TV channel, they wouldn't know the difference. They were like, oh, they got televangelists too.
Same nonsense.
You could slot them between Crevlo and TVJs and the society would be right at home. But you gotta love it. As I tell people, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. But I tell you, your story is a very interesting one. It's good to see that you have come out. We encourage people, if you have any family who are not Jehovah's Witnesses, if you have not, we encourage you to call them. Let them know that you're no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And what you will often find is that they will welcome you with absolutely no reservations.
They all have, actually. My dad's most of my parents are the only ones that are witnesses, except for a cousin of ours. And mind you, the cousin of mine, their kids are all out and have contacted me, have reached out to me to let me know that they're out too. We're all like this close-knit Jehovah's Witness family now. It's crazy.
Yeah. You see, one of the things the society wants to do with the shunning, the purpose is to make you lonely, so that you'll come crawling back on glass bottles and so forth, broken and all that kind of stuff. But my mom always told me, she said, JT, you guys have got to, you and Lady C, you got to build a new clientele of friends. And that's what we tell people. Start building a new clientele of friends. Replace the friends that you had, because if you don't, you will struggle emotionally. It will just be very, very difficult. So call up the people you went to school, all the kids, and that's what we've done. We're like, man, you remember when I couldn't do this in school? I was crazy. You call these people up, and you will find these people are very, very welcoming and do this. And this way it gives you a wide base of people to turn to. And you will actually be surprised how they will tell you what they thought of you when you were one of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Once I was in college and started, again, one of the benefits of college is how to relate to people. You're able to relate to others your own age, and you're able to have conversations at your level, not conversations about the organization, not conversations about what assembly you're going to, legitimate world events and societies and changes and laws, and you have real legitimate conversations with people that you're supposed to be talking to your age. And I gained a lot of friendships in college. I really learned my personality and that people liked me. How did I know this? People liked me. I made friends in college. When I got my first job, I made friends there who are still friends to this day. And so despite not having a lot of friends in the organization until I was older, I had cultivated these relationships outside of the organization. And eventually that probably was what led to me having doubts about the organization, because these friendships in the quote-unquote world were the ones that motivated me to look at things differently. So I would sit in a Kingdom Hall in a meeting and be told, worldly people are bad, worldly people, they smoke, they drink, they have wild sex all over the place. They're not the kind of people that we want to associate with. And then I would go to work and allow myself to actually associate with these people outside of work. It was one thing to talk to them inside, which was okay, but also to a limit. But then once I finally gave up that whole stigma that worldly people are bad, is when things in my life started changing, because then I would go out to happy hours with them. I would, go out to dinners. They would do dinners as a team, and I would get to know these people, and they are normal people, just like the rest of us. Not all of them are out there murdering and doing drugs and, having sex all over the place. Like, a lot of people, there's good people out there. And I was able to get to know these people, and I was able to start becoming, back then, one of these people. And back then is when I ended up starting to date. Was also a whole other door that was open to me once I finally let go of all these stigmas that the Jehovah's Witnesses had put in my head, that it's okay to date. It's okay to get to know other men. You don't have to just date someone and think that you have to marry them in 6 months, or that because you're dating them for longer than 6 months that you have to become his wife, or otherwise it's looked down upon, or you could be marked, and it's okay to be intimate with someone that you care about without having to promise them the rest of your life. Like, it was a whole other world that was open to me at that point. Thanks to the friends that I had cultivated outside of the organization as an adult. One in particular person that I've dated in my past ended up becoming probably one of the most important men in my life. And as a female, you should always want to say that your father was, the most important man in your life. And that's how it should be, technically. But because of the dysfunction that was in my family, and because of the things that took place, and the low self-esteem that I had, and everything that I took out of my parents' home with me and carried with me, all the toxic weight that I had, upon meeting this man, was released, I guess is the best way to put it. Meeting this man that I ended up dating was probably one of the best decisions I have ever made in my entire life, outside of getting an education. I want to put it that way, because that was the number one top choice that I've made. Number two was dating this man. And he just so happened to be an NFL football player who had been recently drafted when we met. And that story in itself is probably what saved me from losing my mind after I was disfellowshipped, because I was very confused after that point. But he was a big part in me understanding who I was as a woman, because at that point I was in my early 20s. I was a woman. And in understanding true unconditional love, because I had not had that up to that point. My parents loved me, and I felt it. And, I had a lot of people in the organization that said they loved me because I grew up with them. But once you're disfellowshipped, all of that love gets snatched back. And to have this man who really didn't have to care about me in the profession that he was in, he had plenty of options. He had plenty of females that consistently threw themselves at him. And not only did I see it and witness it, but, it's just understood that if you are a professional athlete, that's what comes with the territory. And yet he chose to show me what unconditional love was. And I will forever be grateful to that man for helping me become the woman that I have become to this day.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. If you have not already done so, we invite you to subscribe to our channel, and feel free to tell your friends about this podcast series. If you have a story to share and you're interested in being on our program, please contact us at exjwct@gmail.com. This has been Lady C. Thank you for tuning in.
This program was sponsored by Critical Thinkers.